Playing a sport you love for over 20 years and enduring the pain and the breakdown of that sport on your body, and doctors come to you with traditional medicine after multiple surgeries, you have to find a solution. Let's dive into it with Riverview Living Soils and Living Soil versus Big Pharma, and how this ex-athlete found a solution. Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Organically Blunt. I have the pleasure and the opportunity to speak with Riverview Living Soils and the guy who created it, Ricky. Welcome to the Organically Blunt show.
What's going on, man? It's good to be here. I appreciate you having me on.
Definitely. So with that being said, I apologize, everybody. I was running a little late there. I got stuck in some traffic, but we made it. We're here. We're on time. And I want to dive right into things with you here. And, you know, being somebody that was an athlete most of their life, a good chunk of it, when did you determine that this plant had some influence on your life? When did that all start?
Probably, when you're in college, we're getting drug tested all the time, whether it's by your school or by the NCAA. So really, you could kind of smoke a little bit in the summer if you wanted to, even recreationally, medicinally, however you wanted to do that. So there was never a whole lot of time to do it unless you want to deal with all the anxiety of wondering if you're going to get an email or a call from your trainer to have to go pee in a cup that day. So really just, I never handled that well. So I just really didn't do that much in college. But after I got done, so I played in Germany and then Australia following college. But then after I was done with all that was like the first time in my life where I was never under the threat of like having a drug test. So it was the first time that you really actually just got to free of anxiety, free of any worries, actually get to use this plant, right? Get to smoke edibles, hash, however you wanted to ingest, right?
Right.
But it was really once I finished professionally, and at this point, like your body is wrecked. I mean, that's eventually why I had to stop playing. Is I think it would have been like surgery number 7 or 8 since I was 17.
Wow.
So it was I had to have a spinal fusion, but basically you were prescribed a lot of pretty heavy medication to be able to just kind of do your day. Because it was a lot of pain. It would cause muscle spasms. So you're prescribed a lot of different pills that all do a good job of what they're doing, but all come with a lot of side effects or heavily addictive qualities. It's always funny when you get off some of these surgeries, the 2 weeks after your prescription runs up, it always sucks because you're needing to take it because you literally just had a rod put in your foot or something. But you can definitely feel how hard it is to not want to take like painkillers, right? And you see why so many problems with this. So after that was all done, and when you can freely start using cannabis without fearing drug tests, I started doing that more. I know even it's kind of funny. I know like having a grandparent wanting to try different stuff, and she was having to deal with way heavier painkillers than just hydros, Percocet. Like you're talking like morphine. So it's one of those things where you see other people using it and having some success without a lot of side effects. So that's when I started doing that, and it's crazy how well it works without any like negative side effects that you deal with, like pharmaceutical prescription painkillers, or anxiety medication or sleep medication. It's like however you want to slice it. Being able to have a natural alternative that doesn't come with all those nasty side effects and addictive qualities was something that was really nice to be able to find. And that's kind of it's something that kind of puts you in into the cannabis world a little bit more than what I had been, rather than just kind of enjoying growing plants and gardening and whatnot. All of a sudden now you're kind of shifting your focus toward this plant that's helping you so much.
Absolutely. So, I was reading a little bit of what we talked about outside of the show, and I read that you were first exposed to like CBD in the hemp
Yeah.
industry. So, did you smoke basically hemp and CBD before you actually got exposed to the actual THC version of the plant?
No, like in college, here and there, again, we'd smoke, and that was again recreationally. I mean,
Sure.
a lot of us, we weren't, when you're doing sports like that, like you don't party much, right? It's not your typical college experience for people that are going out and going to class and then going to bars. It's not like everybody does that, but it seemed like most people were. But you just can't do that. Like you have too many commitments, and you would pay for it the next day, like if you do that. So it was crazy. Like the way we could have fun without drinking was cannabis when it was like
Oh
appropriate.
yeah.
Felt like we couldn't do that because you'd wake up and you'd feel just totally fine, right? You'd be completely fine. And you're able to kind of just, and it's funny, like looking back now, it would be an interesting conversation to have with a lot of my coaches, because that was, I mean, I was in college 11 years ago now. I'm 33. I just turned 33.
Okay.
And so my last year of college was 22. So it's just turned 30. So it's about 10 years, almost a decade. Right. So even though like it's just a lot has changed, even just within the last 10 years around cannabis, it's just like you would have guys like get in trouble, and it wouldn't be the NCAA drug tests were the bad ones. You don't want to get caught for those. But like your schools would run them on your team to try and identify who they need to kind of keep track of, and basically watch so they don't fail those drug tests. But it's funny to see the kind of reactions you would get from coaches, because a lot of them are just they're older, right? It's from a different generation mostly.
Right.
So they just grew up with a completely different perception around cannabis. So it's funny to see everybody reacting so harshly to somebody failing a drug test for cannabis, but then having very little issue with somebody showing up to practice a little hungover, right? And it's just like, just to kind of think of that. And if I were to be put in charge of a team now, it's funny. I would much rather have everyone on my team give up alcohol. And as long as you are not high at practice, at games, any team activities, like if you want to go smoke and you're doing fine in class and that helps you study, or because it's just it treats it like it impacts everybody differently, right? Whether like
Right.
somebody's taking it to sleep, somebody's taking it for anxiety medication, somebody, it helps me concentrate when I'm trying to study because I can't sit still, right? And I know there was a lot of my teammates, they had trouble with that. And it can be used in good ways, but it would be funny to sit down with them now and see if the attitudes have changed now that you're starting to see a little bit more of a cultural shift around it. It's just the NCAA, everything is changing now. People are getting paid stupid money with NIL, and good for them. But it's just a completely different game. It's turning, the college sports world is turning professional, and I think they're getting a lot more lax with the if they even test at all anymore. Who knows? I don't know. If you took like NyQuil at the wrong time and got tested, you could fail, or maybe it's like Robitussin. But like
Wow.
it's crazy. There was all kinds of stuff you could fail for, but I don't know if they've lightened up on a lot of that. I guess it comes from a good place. I don't know, but it's just control over stuff they don't need to be trying to control. I don't know, but it'd be an
Right.
interesting conversation to see if their attitudes have changed at all about that now that it's not such the boogeyman that it was. I mean, it's still
Right.
in the minds of a lot of people, it is that boogeyman, but it's not the same. And then you're starting to see that shift. So it'd be interesting to get their take.
Absolutely. Just me thinking back as you're talking, I was not as big of an athlete as you because, well, I was a nerd and I couldn't dance, I couldn't sing, I couldn't play instruments, I could barely dribble a basketball. And I went into wrestling as a high schooler, and I wrestled my whole career through high school. And I did all right. I placed
You
at
got to be
state, and
fit
I,
to do that.
Yeah, but I've gained 40 pounds since then, you know, and I've been out of high school. Oh, let's see, it's 23 years now, and
Yeah.
I graduated college in '06, and things like you said, things have definitely changed a lot and everything, and especially around the plant. You know, it makes me wonder, you know, how my coaches would be with it because we were in so much pain too. You know, like
Be crazy. Yeah.
definitely, definitely, yeah. So, you know, when did you come into the field of basically wanting to work with organics and not just
Yeah.
organics as a whole, but soil? Did you study geology? Did you just, how did you get your experience?
So my undergrad, to be honest, has nothing to do with like horticulture at all. Like, so for me, I'd always like been around plants, enjoyed plants, like just minor garden, just basically gardening hobby type stuff. But where it really turned the corner was I had some friends that were starting a CBD grow and they had space in Montana. They wanted to do that. And honestly, they're a wildly smart group, but none of them had really had hands-on experience with crops except one other guy, right? So they were trying to find somebody else to come help manage this grow that we were doing up there. And one of my best friends was doing that. He gives me a call one night. He's like, "Hey, can you come help us out? Because we just need help for a little bit, right? When just during some of the more like labor-heavy parts of what you're when you're growing, like during the season."
Sure.
And went up there and loved it. And they asked me to stay on. And that was like 2018, maybe somewhere around that time, maybe early 2019. Um, but like once I kind of got into that, it was just kind of always like whatever you're kind of getting into, it's hard not to want to be really good at it. And it's just some things just bite. And it's just like there's certain things that you can like bang your head against a wall trying to learn and you just never do. And there's just some things that you just kind of fall into and it just is kind of natural and it clicks. And sometimes you got to reread something 20 times to understand it. And another book you can skim through and feel like you can recite the whole thing. And just cultivation in general. It's not just cannabis, but more just the soil science part, especially as it relates to cannabis, because it is a very fun plant to grow. It's pretty. I mean, honestly, it's just to get to work with all the different genetics, whether you're growing indoors in a greenhouse or outdoors, however you want to do that. And it was, for me, the organic side definitely connected with me a little bit more. I'm not saying you can't be sustainable growing hydroponically and with salts, because I know a lot of times when you're talking like water usage, sometimes can it be even less, right? Doing that, if like depending how you set it up. But for me, doing it organically with organic materials and compost and worm castings, just byproducts of other industries where you can recycle, right? And try and keep things as natural as possible. That just resonated with me a little bit more than other styles. So that's it's kind of what called to me. And then I remember what kind of got us started off on like making soils, right? Is so we grew outdoors. It's like 10 acres in Montana, and it really wasn't. It's like you're fighting with equipment failure growing that big and irrigation problems and like making it work. But you do all that work, and I remember there were like two storms that just wrecked everything. And it's just like you do all this work and then just hail and wind just rip through and you're done, right? So
Yep.
we were like never again, because also at that point like crop insurance wasn't great and just it felt like it was just a gamble. Like you could still pop hot, and then even though it just be like this arbitrary zero point 0.3 number that is just it was just silly. It was all, they made it too much of a gamble to be able to do that. We're
Absolutely.
like, okay, we're moving indoors, right? We're like, we need control. Like we can, there wasn't a whole at that time, like a lot of like higher quality smokable indoor grown, or at least like hoop, like good, like climate controlled greenhouse, like flower. Cause you can grow great sun grown stuff, but it's harder. You need a big hoop
Yeah.
house, small indoors to just protect your crop a little bit better. But we moved indoors, and it's not like we were going to be consistently buying large amounts of soil, right? We needed really just one big order. So it didn't really make sense logistically to get a mixer and do all this. And around here, like we found some people who would, but it wasn't really that much far off from just getting it shipped in. So it's like, okay, so at that point in time, and there's still one of my favorite companies that do this, is we ship soil in from Washington, from Kiss Organics, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Great company. Amazing. Like Tad and all those guys, what they've done for that has been awesome. But then when you're doing it, you're just like, we could make, like, I just hated it because I know we're paying thousands on freight. And I'm like, why can't we just make this? But it just didn't make sense to do one time, to buy a 10,000, you can buy it, but like a $10,000 mixer. Like, why? But didn't make sense to do one time. So we shipped it in. And the whole time I'm thinking, like, there is nothing really around here right now. Like, this would be a cool opportunity, but it just wasn't the time. Like, you have no time to do that. So fast forward some years, and the CBD market is like very saturated. So at this point, we're just like, okay, this isn't worth doing. It was either like, okay, we need to jump in with even more of our time, or we need to just walk away from this. So we all decided, we just walked away. And at that point, I'm like, okay, what are we doing now? Because I had taken a sharp left turn from basketball with like a plant hobby to diving hard into it. And then now at least been doing this for a while. So it's like, it doesn't take long to get good at stuff if you're committed to it and you're doing it every day. Right. So at this point, I've been doing this for a while and messing, and even though it's not at scale, because I knew what was available, building, like creating soil mixes and blends and trying that out, and built a hoop house, and it would just be experimenting with that on the side. And so it'd been messing around with this, knowing like this was potentially a possibility. And then we decided to walk away from that. And I'm like, okay, we're going to really try this thing now. So at that point, just had gotten kind of a blend that we had been like, I really liked and enjoyed. And I'm telling you, there's outside of just buying, because you can go and you can see like soil science textbooks, you can buy those, you can read them, they're all available, right? So you can give yourself your own college education, right?
Yeah.
You don't need it. You don't need to go to school. Like, you can buy the text. It helps to have like professors and people there to be able to discuss this with, but you don't have to have it. If you just want to stick your nose in a book and not just do that, but go out and do stuff, right? You got to go take it and apply. So, but I'm telling you, outside of all this, and I'll always shout it out because it gave you much more control over what you're doing. There's an agronomist, his name is Bryant Mason. And I'm telling you, like, any company right now that's using a lot, like at least starting with a lot of the figures he's done research on for cannabis for nutrition targets. I'm almost like, I know Kiss is, right? They should, and anybody who isn't, like, you should. The guy, he's done a lot of work on this. He's very good and they work. It's not like you got to run them exactly, because we've adjusted slightly from those, but it's a really good place to start, right? And he has his own cannabis soil class, right? So if you're ever interested in this, I will always recommend it, because it's something that, like, where you're taking a lot of very complex ideas from these textbooks, and where it's like, it would be like, hey, it'd be nice to have a teacher, you know, so you can take all this knowledge that like makes sense, but it's not quite as easy to grasp because no one's put it in simple terms. You're reading like these books that sometimes try to sound convoluted and fancy because they can, but he distills everything down into very simple, easy to understand ways, to where if you're really interested in learning how to like create your own soil blends in this, it's a great course to take. It was one that really kind of helped me dial things in faster in like months compared to the years before, because you're just kind of playing with it. But then once I kind of got that, I was like, okay, we got fairly set with what you're doing and like what you want to put in this and what's important, and like your somewhat base ratios, and just kind of ran with it. Mixing on tarps, mixing in giant drums on casters. It was a lot of work. So basically I had to like operate at a loss for like quite a while, and doing other work at the same time to be able to like make it, right, as you're saving up to get there, because it's just too much labor to be able to do on a tarp or on a in a fat 55-gallon drum spinning that thing to make it worth it, because you can't charge as much as this your time is worth for that. It doesn't make sense. So you have to, like, you're basically going into these shops and events and hitting people up on Instagram and whatever, however you can contact people to say, here's who we are, here's what we do, here's soil testing, here's this, can you give this a shot? Right? And just grinding it out that way for a while. And then the biggest thing is, once you could get a mixer, what took you hours to do, you can knock out in 15 to 20 minutes, right? So
yep,
everything changed then, and then it became real, So, but it's
absolutely.
yeah, it's funny to think back on all that like that.
And the funny thing is everything you just mentioned, I've experienced as well. And the reason I say this is my best friend, and I always suggest people to support local. I'm big on supporting local businesses. Yeah. And my best friend is a geologist, and he runs a soil company up here in Michigan called Country Roots. Okay. And, he went through all that too. He had a brick and mortar store, and he had a grow shop, and he also did hops and beer, and he was into all that stuff. And then, the economy changed, and he had to shut the store down, and he moved everything to the farm and did the full operation. And he was doing everything like you were talking, mixing it in barrels and on tarps. And then he got a mixer, and I seen you guys' picture today on Instagram, you guys mixing some stuff up. He's got the same kind of mixer, and I'm like, man, to think people are doing it just like I was just exposed to. And I'm like, and you even your warehouse, like I was looking at your background, and I'm like, man, it looks just like my buddy's barn. I'm like, this guy's set up. Yeah. Dude, and I'm like, this is legit. Yeah. And
like, packing as much as you can in a little space. Just it's not like, luckily we do have enough space, but it's funny, as soon as you have space, it's never enough.
Right.
Like, it runs out. So we'll never get, like, and it's crazy how fast it happens, right? It's
definitely
the tractor getting undersized, the mixer being undersized, the space being undersized, and like, you're fortunate to have problems like that, right? But at the same time, it's like it's like you almost got to like frame it the right way to be like, all right, I'm lucky to have to solve a new problem every day. It's like nothing's ever boring, but it's sometimes a little rhythm would be nice.
Right. Exactly.
Like right now, like the challenging thing that we have is like, so we've within the past year have brought our worm casting production in-house, which we feel like makes a big difference in the quality of our product. But now it's a whole nother business to balance with soil, because now not only and like as you scale, and this is where it's like, I'll never hate on a company that has trouble as they grow, or like maybe sometimes like you can be like, hey, you probably should have pulled the reins back a little bit when things started losing quality. But it is hard to source enough really high quality inputs to support growth quickly. Like the castings, it's like how they'll go through like a yard of material in like 10 to 14 days. And it's crazy. And so it's just like sourcing clean leaf compost, like making sure we can keep all the worms fed and all that through, and where we get it, depending on weather, depending on availability, is it all done? And then like being in the Midwest, having to deal with winter, right? Because everything gets frozen solid sitting outside if it's not like active. Yeah. So it's just like, but then you got to move it inside to thaw if it's like something like that, and then make sure it's warm, and then you got to bring it back to life before you can even. So it's funny, all the little issues that you have to deal with, and it just never stops.
We went through the same thing you just said, up here in Michigan. So his barn has heated floors.
Yeah.
And the worms are moved into the barn.
Yeah.
But it got so cold up there that the water lines froze under the ground for the water boiler, and he was afraid the worms died off. And it was like,
Yeah.
He was panicking, he thought he lost his whole business basically,
And a
He's
lot of
like,
those
well, there
worms are
goes
expensive.
everything. Yeah,
It's like building up the population of worms to work through a yard of material that quick. It's a lot of worms, and it's not cheap. And he
absolutely.
had to use, because like the barn's heated, but it's like the way it was sized was like, okay, when it gets cold, like we'll be able to keep it like above 60, because we use African night crawlers and they like warmer
Nice.
temperatures, right? But they work really quickly, but they don't like cold. So it's just we were getting some of those days, even in Missouri, which is a bit farther south, like where you're getting 0 and below 0, and it's a barn, like it's insulated and there's a heater, but it's not like it's not built to do that overnight when the wind is ripping
Right.
and the garage door is not. It's basically it's barely keeping up, and you're like, okay, worms, just like make it for me. You got like 5 or 6 more days, like come on. And then you just be throwing, like what we were able to do is at least keep getting like fresh hot compost on top.
Yep.
So even though the
Yep.
room was cold, at least they were warm. But it just never stopped, right? It's just, and it's funny, like the one thing, like you're getting into a profession of taking care of fragile living things, and like whether we're cultivating cannabis, whether we're growing worms, it's like all of a sudden now
Right.
you're this. It just it never ends. There's no, like people work Monday through Friday, they go home for the weekend. All right, see you Monday. But it's like when you're farming, whether it's farming worms or farming cannabis or whatever, like it doesn't stop, right? It's they're living
Right.
things.
No, right. Yep,
So,
exactly.
and then you're
All
like,
my friends
you're
are
like,
farmers here and they say that too. I didn't mean to cut
yeah.
you off. I
No,
apologize
no,
there.
you're good. I've been doing the same to you on
They
that too. You're fine.
they say the same thing, dispensaries are for tourists, and you always want to deal with a caregiver or somebody like that. At least here in Michigan,
Yeah,
and
same here.
we
Oh
can
my God,
relate.
same.
We can relate to you there.
I mean, I feel like every day or every other day, someone's posting some article about some big recall, right? Mold, mildew,
Absolutely.
just some kind of nasty. I'm like, it's, it's kind of what like capitalism does at that scale for growing things that people are going to ingest. It's okay. How can I put in as little amount of money to get the most return, and how many shortcuts between here and there can I take to cut my costs, right? But when you're
Right.
talking people at home, right, either growing your own medicine, which is what we're trying to help people do, or caregivers, which are just they're passionate about what they're doing. You can 100% tell, like flour or like anything, whether you're making edibles, rosin, flour, it doesn't matter. Like when someone actually put care into that process, right? They wanted to do a
Absolutely.
good job, and it's just wild to say, oh, it's unsafe. People growing at home, it could be dangerous. It's who knows. I'm like, it's pot calling the kettle black, right? It's like
Right.
literally just your projection, right? um, so I don't know. It's kind of wild that people would be fighting, but it's money, right? That's what it all comes down to is
It
control and
is
money.
too. Yep.
So,
Most
and
of
that's
our
go ahead.
sorry,
Yeah,
go
sorry.
ahead. I was
No,
just
you're
going to
good.
say
No,
most of our companies that are like that here are ran by like ex DEA and ex ICE
yeah,
agents and ex police officers. And you're like, the same people that arrested you are now
yeah.
providing it to you. Like,
It's crazy. The same
make
here. It's the same everywhere. Yeah. It's
right.
like, hey, no
Yeah.
freedom. It's like no freedom for you, but freedom for me, right? The rules for thee and not for me.
Right.
So it's just it's infuriating, honestly, to see that. But
Definitely.
I think that's what's really nice. Again, like with like companies, what your buddies are doing, and Kiss and Build a Soil, and what we're trying to do, and there's some other places out East Coast that are doing a great job. Just being able to provide simple growing solutions for home growers, right? Because there's
Right.
nothing wrong with growing hydroponically and cocoa and wool and however you want. It's just like it is a little more complicated. There's a lot
Yeah.
more to watch. It's not like you can't grow. I'm not the kind of person who's saying like organic's the only way to grow really good flour. Like you can grow great flour so many different ways. But in terms of like the person who is growing at home for personal consumption or a caregiver growing for others that either A, doesn't have the time, doesn't have the knowledge or experience, or just wants to do other things, right? Where you're not married to your garden. You spend as much time as you want to in there. It is the most simple solution you can do for growing. And that's what's kind of nice, is being able to make that accessible to people. It's just like, and it's rewarding to see. There's a few people that I don't mind these interactions with them at all. I actually really enjoy them. But it's like I'm talking to almost every day, like through Instagram or via email, like walking through grows, and it honestly, it's funny to see, like, because I think back of my very first grow,
Oh
and
man.
it was like, and I remember at that point, like it was rock wool and whatnot, and it wasn't bad, but it just like, it wasn't that good. It's just like, you can know plants and kind of grow house plants and veggies and like do an okay job, but like when you go and try and grow cannabis indoors in some kind of system like that, it's not that easy,
No.
and I'm just like, I'm not mad. I'm just like, I'm watching his grow and I'm like, this looks amazing. Like, if only I could look back and compare that to what my first grow was like. It's insane because it's just simpler, right? It's just
Right.
the
Yeah.
nutrient part is done for you. You get a tent, and the tents are getting so good. And I've like, you literally, okay, temp, humidity, let's keep it as close as we can. Okay, I can measure my light, great. I got a tensiometer, I can measure moisture, great. All I got to do is water, great. Like, it's becoming so much more accessible and easier for novice growers to grow flower that would make any like large commercial grow, it wouldn't be the same, right? It's
Right.
that much better
Yep.
without having to do much, right? So, and that's why they don't want people growing at home, because it's not hard. Like, there's a learning curve, and you will get better as you go, but you will get good pot, right? Not having to put that much effort in, using a water only living soil system. Just have an appropriate amount of soil. Just make sure your temp and humidity is pretty good. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's like, everybody wants to be really, really perfect with it. You don't have to.
Right.
Does it help? Yes. Do you need to do it that way? No. The
No.
plant will still live. The biggest thing is just, don't blast it with too much light. All these lights are so nice now, and they're powerful.
Oh yeah. Tell
Common
me
problem,
about it.
right? The most common problem I see with people is like, I'll be like, hey, do you know what your light's set at? What's your PPFD? And they're like, high. And I'm like, we need, okay, what does that mean though? And there's like
Hey.
apps on the phone now that do a pretty good job for pretty cheap. Um,
Yep.
so it's like, we need to measure this, but then as soon as they fix that, the plant bounces right back, and then it's easy, right?
Yep, I'm guilty of that. Literally, in my current grow, I've always been a sun-grown guy, so
Yeah,
I'm not. I don't
love
have.
some.
I have
Yeah.
a lot of experience outdoors, but not a lot of experience when it comes to indoors, and I'm still learning a lot. I have years under my belt, but I'm always still learning. And you know, we got a new light from Austria. That's where it's made, from a company called Sandlight, and I got it, a whole AI controlled tent series we're doing, and
Wow.
everything's hands up, hands
How's
off.
that
Yep.
working?
Oh, amazing. It keeps the environment completely ideal situations. I mean, if the humidity gets too high, it fires it up. If it, the circulation, I got active intake, active exhaust, active circulation, oscillating fans. It's all AC infinity.
That is really
No,
cool.
no sponsorship, by the way. I got to put that out there because no disrespect to them, they don't like me, so that's okay. I buy my products. I buy my products,
Yeah,
ladies and
that's
gentlemen.
fair.
Yes, and well, long story short, we wanted to try it out and see if it would hold up to what they got going on, and we wanted to show people, just like you said, hands off, water only. But to make it even easier, we went with a watering system, not electric. It's gravity fed.
Yeah.
It's by Thirsty Earth, and we buried these oyas. They're like terracotta pots almost, but it's hard to explain them. I don't know a lot about how to explain how they work, other than they fill up with water and they sweat, and
Yep. They're like
that's
porous.
about.
Like, this somehow
Yep.
water gets through. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And I went with an eco wit, and I got the moisture dialed in, and I let it dry back to about 25% moisture before I water back up to about 42. And then I just let it taper down, and it's all been hands off. I mean, I lasagnaed my bed. I got a full bed in there, and it's just under 4x2 bed. And I was growing some autos from Night Owl Seeds, and the company was like, "Well, what's your percentage at?" That's what I was getting at here. And I was like, "Oh, I got the light set at 65%." And they're like, "You're in seedling stage. Why is it so high?" And I'm like,
yeah.
And they're like, dial that back. And then, I started what we call the Organic Growers Society. It's kind of a thing we're working on. We're going to relaunch a Patreon, and we got a Discord now. It's all private. I did a year deal for the first 25 members, and they got in. They got a bunch of goodies from our sponsors and stuff. It was good. Now we're going to offer a once a month giveaway, and the cost to the brands is simple, because I'm about community. All we ask is whoever gets involved as a brand to offer a product for the giveaway. That's it. That's your payment. I'm not charging you for advertising or anything, and I'm still going to promote your brand. And we charge $27 a month is what it's going to be, and it's going to get you access to exclusive content, educational content, and everything else. And the moral of this is I had the light up too high, and a learning experience was I used the photon. I think that's what it's called.
It works well.
And I put a piece of paper over it because I didn't know you had to do that at first. And so I first put it under there, and it was like 2,000. And my members were like,
crazy.
Did you put a piece of paper on there? And I'm like, what do you mean? I'm very sheltered when it comes to a lot of this.
It needs like a diffuser. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so I did, and then I got it dialed in because my plants, the leaves were starting to curl under, and
it makes such a big difference.
Yep, and it really does.
Because it's like, I know, like, one of the biggest pieces of advice that I give people, it's like we intuitively do not, like, we don't see the world like plants do, right?
Right.
Our senses don't see things the way they do. It's all you need, sensors, right?
Yeah.
So it's just the photon app. What's nice is I took my apogee meter and even compared it to that, and it was fairly accurate to that. I mean, it was close enough where like you can recommend using it. Yeah. And being able to quantify your light, just like you walk into a room and you can have idea, okay, it's hot or it's humid, but you don't know what exactly that means. That's why we have a temperature and humidity gauge that we can read on a hygrometer, right? It's why, like, it's not necessary, but it's one thing that really helps people dial their growing is that tensiometer, right? I know Aerometer makes one. Blue Mat has another one that's available through like Sustainable Village. It's a digital one. It's a little more user friendly. But just being able to have those tools to just give a number to what soil moisture means, give a number to what light intensity is, right? Because 65% is something very different if that plant is if the light's 6 inches or like 4 feet, right? 65% is very different depending on where that hangs, but your PPFD is your PPFD, right? So it's like, your light intensity by that number. Without having to guess what light intensity is at what height and what that means. It's quantify things, right? It makes things a lot easier. Yeah. So that's great advice. So it's like, I get what you're saying is like being able to make sure you had your photons, having other people to have that photon app, being able to use that to know exactly what they're doing. Yeah. So I get that.
Because I didn't have a clue. I was green to that. I've never had problems with my past light setups, and then I got something that was very high powered, and it was like, okay, all right.
It's like I need to know how much to dial this back. Yeah,
it was too, because they went from being droopy to literally praying to the light, and I'm like, okay, that's what I want. Yeah,
and it's nice, and all it was just something to tell you what it meant, right? Okay, this light's bright.
Yep.
Bright, right? Because that's like a big thing too, is like, it kind of reminds me, like another issue that I'll see a lot with people is like, here's my plant. This is like, why am I seeing this deficiency? It's a new bag of soil or something. But, and what we eventually get to, and like we have to kind of train your way of looking at diagnosing deficiencies and toxicities as well, is like the deficient symptom in the leaf doesn't always mean that there's a deficiency in the soil of that nutrient, right? Like let's say, and one example I use all the time, like when you're growing tomatoes, right? And one big issue is like if you turn that tomato over and you see like a nickel or dime sized necrotic spot at the bottom of the tomato, it's called blossom end rot, right?
Okay.
But it's a calcium issue, right? But it's a calcium issue, not automatically because you might be deficient in the soil, but it's what it's signifying is a transpiration issue, right? Because calcium needs to be constantly taken up, because when it's deposited, it's not going anywhere. It's not mobile. It's not moving, right? So you need constant transpiration to be pulling calcium and depositing calcium in new tissue. So what can happen if people let their pots dry out too much, right? Or if their soil's not staying moist, you're going to have calcium problems because it's not a deficiency in the soil, but it's a transpiration issue leading to deficiency in the leaf tissue, right? So it's kind of one of those things where making sure like your light isn't too strong, right? Which is causing a host of other issues and deficient symptoms or purpling or yellowing, right? Because your plant is really stressed out and it's having nutrient deficiency symptoms, but it's not because you're deficient in the soil. And then as soon as we kind of go through, it's like, okay, what's your light at? What's this at? With this at? Soil moisture. It's like, okay, we adjust this, fix that. And then within a few days, like it's crazy how fast plants just whoop, perk back up, right? It's just make sure before you go diving and throwing things at soil or at your plants thinking there's deficiencies in the soil, like really do a good job at making sure your environment is right, right? Because it's a lot easier to play with gauges on your environment than it is to fix like a toxicity in your soil because we thought we were deficient. So we throw more of something. And the issue is not that there wasn't any, it's that it was a transpiration issue or something, which now is causing imbalances, which now, because we attacked a problem that wasn't there, now we've created a problem. So it's like when you see things, right, slow down, observe, make sure your environment's right, make sure there's not any pests, right? Get your scope out, make sure you're pest free. Then you can start taking a look. Okay, maybe there's something in the soil, right? But it's a lot easier to add, right, than it is to take away when you're talking about working with like these living soil systems, because you can flush, and it does kind of it sets you kind of back closer to zero. But you don't want to have to do that, especially when you have plants in the soil, right? Or if you have a bed and you want to flush, you don't want to have to flush with plants in the soil. So
no,
but yeah, it's just kind of taking a holistic approach to growing and not overreacting and understanding that like, hey, my issue might be my light intensity and not like a deficiency, right? Or at least like, and it could be a deficiency in the soil, but like check other boxes first before you go throwing stuff at your soil, right?
definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. So I want to dive into, sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. I was thinking about like back what you were saying with that. And I was just like, that AI system is neat. So I'm
okay.
Interested.
Yeah. We can talk more about it a little bit if you want.
No, you're good. I was more so just like, I think out loud a lot. So it was like,
definitely.
as we were exiting that, I was just thinking like, it would be really cool to see what AI could do in those kind of grows of just like, literally it's like, hey, chat GPT, and then just boom, run the grow.
It does have like a chat GPT built in, and you can ask it different things and it'll tell you about it. But it's really, really interesting. I'll have to show it to you. I'll send you some shots of it. But
anyway, sorry to interrupt you about what you were saying.
No.
Go ahead.
I was gonna dive into just you and your brand, Riverview Living Soils. Yep. And what I wanted to know, and we want to let the people out there know too, we've heard a lot about your journey here so far and some of the issues you faced and a lot of good information for newer people. But my question for you now is, what sets your brand apart? What sets your soil apart from other people? What do you do that is unique to Riverview? What makes Riverview? Yeah.
So again, for us, we want to be in control as much of this process as we can. So, right, controlling our compost production, controlling our castings production, I think are two of the biggest things that we do that give us more control over our final product. Because when you're talking
Absolutely.
about what kind of, again, like these living soil systems, there's living, right? It's a biological community, and two of the biggest inputs that you can into your soil mix that make a big difference like that, your worm castings and your compost, right? And before, when like I was sourcing this, we're lucky to have some good compost in the Mid-Missouri area, but it can be inconsistent, right? So the other thing that we do that kind of leads into that is we do a lot of soil testing, right? We test for heavy metals, we test for nutrient analysis, right? To make sure that if you were to buy a bag today, that bag, barring that we're not making purposeful nutrient changes to different ratios, is the same that bag that you're going to buy next year or 2 years or 3 years down the road, right? Making sure that there's consistencies, because it helps people know what to do. You have a process, you know what to expect. You buy a bag, you basically understand that this is going to be the same every single time. But when you're working with compost that you're not in control of, the good and bad thing, it's like like the nutrient content of compost is all over the place, right? It's just what it's like, especially when you're working with stuff with food waste or even stuff like, it's just, you can deal with trash, which is a problem, which we hate. In inconsistency in nutrient content, it could be hot, it could not quite be finished. It's like the carbon to nitrogen ratio might not be there. It's like you get a big delivery and it's just ammonia. You're like, I can't use this, right? It's not ready.
Right.
So what we did is we very quickly realized, like, we need to be in control of this if this is going to be like the level of company we want it to be, right? Where you're trying to be, again, one of the best soils available in the country, right? So when that is a goal of yours, when that's what you're striving to do, it I don't see how you can do that by not being in control of every process that you can be in control of, right? We control our worms' diet, right? To know that what the quality going in is what's coming out. We incorporate biochar into their bedding. We incorporate a lot of biochar
Nice.
into our mixes. I mean, that's a big one. We're really fortunate, again, here in Missouri, to have a really good biochar supplier, where their carbon percentage is like above 80%, I think, on the last test he sent me, which is stellar. And I'm fortunate to have that like under a half hour away, right? And to have those kind of quality inputs here, and to be able to be in control of our castings, to be in control of our compost, to be running consistent soil tests, not just like one a year. Because again, things can change, and you want to make sure before bagging up that things are where you want them to be, right? And we just don't want to have anybody to ever had a bad experience. I know it's impossible to guarantee that will never happen. It's just not reasonable, even though I want it to be that, right? And it's almost like obsessively so, that it's just we go through and do a lot of the little things to make sure that even as we scale, you don't lose that small batch, like the soul, right? Or just like the quality. You talk about like home growers and caretakers comparing their flower to large commercial operations. Like, it's just the truth. As you scale, as you get bigger, it is harder to maintain control quality of your product, because now we need more of things, right? So now you have to rely on sourcing it from different places. And one thing that we're not going to do is we're not going to grow bigger than what we can supply ourselves, right? And that's the goal.
Right.
And I believe that's what really sets us apart, from a lot of other brands. I'm not saying other brands don't do well, but I think what makes us special is that every part of our soil that we can control, we are in control of. And like the castings and compost are the two biggest things that I can think of. We mix and we'll see as this, again, as you scale, things get harder. But right now, it's like we're big enough to be able to survive as a business and grow, but we're small enough that like every batch is measured individually. So it's not like you're mixing up a giant tote of nutrients, like all these like different protein meals, gypsum, calphos, and everything there. And you're like, okay, it's mixed up well. I do 20 pounds, right, in this, and it's pretty well mixed. No, it's like per yard, it's mixed right per batch. So you're
Yep.
not getting a lot of inconsistencies when we're testing. It's actually pretty spot on almost every time, and that's the goal, right? And again, this like the people that, like, it's a small team, and the guys that I have working with me, and then we have another girl is doing a lot with our packaging, and she's going to be working on our website. And that's another big step for us, is kind of polishing up packaging, right? And it's a silly thing, but you can't get away from the fact that people do eat with their eyes. You know,
Yep.
we like the bags we use. They're tough, but it's just slapping a sticker on a bag and throwing it in the store. It's just like, it doesn't have shelf presence, right? It's not like the
Right.
product isn't good, but that's one thing we're really excited about that we're going to have in about a month. I feel like it's just tough, good looking packaging to match a really high quality soil is something that's just like, it's like the ribbon on top. You don't need it, right? The soil's the same, but it's just nice to have that be like a polished and professional look when you spent so much time on what's in the bag. So
Definitely.
anyways,
We
that was
gotta
and we're just, yeah, we're passionate about what we do. It means a lot
absolutely.
to us. But it's something we're excited to wake up and do every day.
Yeah, you got to have passion, and we got a
Yeah.
question from one of the people in the audience here.
Yeah.
And he said he sent you a message too because he's interested in some soil from you. So
Yeah.
looks like we got
Awesome.
a
I appreciate that a lot. Seriously.
yeah.
I appreciate
His name
that.
is
It means a lot.
Nubs. We had him on here, and he wants to
Okay.
know: can you supply bulk orders for commercial farms?
Yep. Yeah, we can. So we've got, I guess it depends the lead time and how much you're looking for. I mean, in our shop, we can store about like 50 or 60 yards at a time.
Okay,
So with enough lead time, we can do that. Again, the tricky part is managing casting production to support those orders. But with enough time, we can do stuff like that. So,
absolutely.
but yeah, I guess our hit me up. Did he say he sent me a message on Instagram or
Yep,
something? Awesome,
yep.
perfect. Instagram's a great way to reach out to this. Also, if anybody needs the email, info@rvlsmo.com. Right, that's another way to reach me. Our website is rvlsmo.com. And again, Instagram at Riverview Living Soils. We have a Facebook page, but man, am I so bad at using it. I try and like I'm trying to get myself to do that more. Instagram's a pain, but it is what it is. It's kind of just a necessary evil. But it's just funny that because we don't hide from the fact that we are a part of the cannabis community. Like, we have
Right.
cannabis content on our page. It is funny that you'll post like a non-cannabis thing and just like have a lot of random like tags like gardening, organic,
Yep.
and go and you're like trying to understand like, how do I use this better to reach more people? And you look at the metrics and it's like one non-follower reached, like one. And like, I don't understand the social media stuff that much, but it's just like you're purposely made not visible. So again, like, being able to do this kind of stuff to talk like we are there and to promote, and we do a lot of reposting with our growers to help them promote themselves as well. It's kind of what this community has to do when you're dealing with what Instagram does, Meta in general.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They don't like us yet fully, but we got to kind of work between the lines there. But, I see people go through numerous accounts, and
Mhm.
it's sad. A lot of my
It's hard.
friends have to start over. But the good thing for them is they have a big enough following that if they start over, they can be found and get a lot of them back.
You
Where
can get
us smaller
yeah.
guys, it's
Hmm.
harder. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a pain.
So
I just think another guy in the community here who did that, and it's basically they took his account, held it, and then gave it back, but erased everything. They basically just gave his name back.
wow.
And it just
Yeah.
takes a long time for people to build. I mean, it's like a way for people to connect. It's a business avenue. It's your hobby. It's however you want to use it.
Right.
Time, right? It's a lot of hard work that they just kind of just erase over a plant, right? And that's what
Definitely.
I like, guys. It is a plant. It is a harmless plant that people like. No one's overdosing on cannabis, right? Like, it's not dangerous, and that it's just wild when it is treated to be so dangerous. When it's just anything but, it's just
Right.
nuts. Yeah,
So I gotta ask one final question before we let you
yeah.
go here.
Yeah, what's
And
that,
this
man?
is what makes Organically Blunt the Organically Blunt show. The reason I don't ask people ahead of time is because I don't want them to think about their answers. So the first
Hit
thought
me
that
with it.
pops in your head, I want you to pop it out.
Deal.
And that being said, here we go. If you could smoke with anybody dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Ooh, Anthony Bourdain.
Okay.
Just the stories that he would have would be incredible to sit down, smoke with him, and kind of just ask him about his life. I know, obviously not here anymore, but if we could bring him back, that would be somebody that I would
Right.
love to get to sit down and talk with.
Definitely. And you're the first person to say that. I've been
Yeah.
getting a lot of newer people
And I
lately
would
that
love him
I
to cook for me too at the same time. If I had to make it, like, I would love to have him make a meal or travel with him somewhere in the world, and just meet him on his turf. Yeah, that'd be a lot
that
of fun.
that would be awesome, definitely. So once again, where can people find you, and do you have any events you're going to be at coming up in the near future that maybe people can connect with you at as well?
Yeah. So again, on Instagram, it's Riverview Living Soils, all one word. Website is rvlsmo.com, and that's where you can find a lot of our products. If you're not in Missouri right now, we're in Missouri and Ohio. We're in Canton,
Oh,
uh,
nice.
at Exotic Gardens. Awesome store, dude. I love that store. Right, I've gotten to know the owner decent over the years. He's the man. So if you're ever in Canton, you need to stop at Exotic Gardens. It's awesome. He's a good dude. Um,
Definitely.
but yeah, so online, it's a way for you, to get access to a lot of our products. If you wanted to try it out, we do our best to keep shipping as reasonable as possible, because it is difficult. It's heavy soil, right? So we
Right,
factor
right.
that in the cost already. So what you see is your cost, right, for that. So it's a way that we can try and get that down as far as possible. So your price is your price with free shipping, right? It's just already integrated. So that helps get it to your door cheaper. um, rblsmo.com, Riverview Living Soils. What else here? Oh, events. And if you're around Columbia, Missouri, there's a local genetics company, Kindway Farms. They're awesome. I've got
Yes.
to know them
Yes.
well. Kindway's great. So they actually got a common ground event here, and that's hold on, I gotta look at this. I'm one of these people who, you have a calendar right here. I don't use it.
Me,
Let me
me
see.
too.
Yeah. Hold on. It's April 12th. I was trying to see if they had the time on there. One sec.
Take your time. No worries.
Yeah, so we'll be there. I think it might be like an 11 a.m. start. And then at that same day in Kansas City, one of the other guys of the team, Brett Esquina, is going to be in Kansas City at River Market Hydro. They have an event going on that day as well. So he'll be there.
Nice.
I'll be at the Common Ground Fair with Kindway. Yeah, and again, if you guys are ever looking for really good genetics, Kindway's awesome, right? Good
That's
people.
how I heard of
It's
you.
really good. Yeah. Ah, no
Be-
kidding. Jesse's awesome. I love them, man. I
she
see them
kind
all.
of Sorry, Kindway signed up and they became a member of the Organic Growers Society. They were
Yeah.
one of the initial members. We have what we call our OG members, and that's the first 25 members who formed the community.
Hmm.
And one of the members actually created us a Discord because I don't know how to use it that well.
I
And
wouldn't.
and yeah. And I'm thankful. 7 points. Holler, you know who you are. But Kindway, yeah, I was looking for people in the soil industry because I'm looking to dive more in the wormhole of soil education,
Hmm.
episodes this season. And the two biggest things the community loves here is soil talk and breeder talk. And
Yep.
we're going to dive into that a lot more this season. I've got shows booked all the way up until August. So you guys, I got a lot of stuff coming. And I'm looking forward to it. And I'm sorry that our first date fell through the cracks.
Oh,
I
dude, all good. I'm telling you,
but
it's that time of year for me too, dude. Spring is
yep.
insane. It doesn't stop. So I was like, even just because I had a show in St. Louis yesterday and an event that I had been speaking at, and then even just like partway through that, I was like, what is today? And I was like, damn. I was like, or I got I got to meet with Organically Blunt. So I messaged you and it was like, dude, you're like, hey, same. Let's just do this tomorrow. So that's
Yep.
easy. Honestly, that worked better for me. I was exhausted yesterday. So
Definitely.
much better. We both got to sleep a little bit, just so we could chop it up. It's been a good time.
Definitely. And if I make it out there, you know, I have an aunt that actually lives like 3 blocks from the St. Louis Arch. And
Okay, let me know if you're
yeah.
ever here. Swing through Columbia. I'm on the east side of Columbia, so
Okay.
really close. I mean, it's about an hour and a half to St. Louis, so it's a little
Sure.
bit of a trip. But if you find yourself with some time and you're in the area, let me know and I can show you around.
Definitely. You know, I haven't seen a lot out there because last time I was out there, I was a young teenager, and my family, all they wanted to do was go to Anheuser-Busch and
Yeah,
Budweiser and
you get
all
drug
that. And I'm
around all
like,
these spots. Yeah,
oh, okay, yeah. I'm like, this is not my type of tea, but hey, I guess this is cool. We can make our own
we can
bottle of
make it work.
beer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, I get it's the family vacations where you're just like, okay, you're just kind of along for the ride at that point.
exactly,
No, I get
exactly.
it. Well, if
Well,
you're
I
here, man, no. Yeah,
definitely
I'd
go.
love to have you out.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I appreciate you coming on the Organically Blunt show. If you guys have any projects or anything going on in the future, don't hesitate to reach out. We'll put you back on the air because
I'd
once
love
you're
to.
on the show, you're part of the family, you know. And the
Yeah.
same thing with the Organic Growers Society. If you decide you want to become a brand partner and you want to get involved, let me know. It is on Discord, so it is another platform. If you don't know, it is a learning curve. I'm still learning it,
Yeah.
but what we're going to do is a giveaway from all our partners once a month, and you have to be a member and a Discord member which your membership is through Patreon, and you get to come in there and join the community. I mean, these people are telling me good morning every morning. We're talking about what we're eating for dinner. You know, one guy was just learning how to do hibachi and was talking about that, and I'm
No
like,
kidding.
wow, I'm like, that's a skill, you know, like,
And honestly, that's what's nice about the cannabis community. It's like it's
yep,
tight, right? Because it has. It's almost like it
exactly.
has to be. It's tight because it has to be because you don't want it to be just. You don't want it to
Right.
be. You don't want it to be touched, right?
No,
So people are there
exactly.
to support, right? I love that. I love
Yep.
that.
Well, you enjoy the rest of your evening, and everybody, if you can't stay lit, stay organically blunt. Thanks for coming on the Organically Blunt show.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we keep it tight. Growing with the best. Keeping it right. Hey! Shout out to the partners helping us grow. From the soil to the light, yeah, you already know. Grow bags keep it fresh, just put it in the bag. Seeds, man, got the seeds, never running a lag. No community without you and I. Drop a like, hit subscribe, let's vibe real high. Sunlight, LED, make the garden shine. Grassroots beds, keep the roots in line. Humboldt got the terps, fast buds coming fast. Atlas seeds outdoor, built to last. Stay organically blunt, keep the vibes real. One love, one plant, yeah, you know the deal.